Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekin for a free $200 credit. Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by NewRelic. Use promo code TWiST and get a free month of NewRelic Pro. To redeem, visit newrelic.com/thisweekin and see why thousands of developers worldwide don't deploy without it. And by SnapTerms, online legal protection made simple. Visit snapterms.com and enter the code TWiST to receive a free NDA with every order.
It's Jason Calacanis. This is This Week in Startups. It's episode number 320, and I am here with about 150 of my closest friends live at RocketSpace. And my guest will be none other than Phil Libin, the CEO of the awesome Evernote, which I use multiple times a day. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Once again, it is Jason Calacanis, the host of This Week in Startups. We've been doing the show for 4 years. And what is the show about? If you can't tell from the name, well, you're an idiot. It's This Week in Startups. It's about startups, about entrepreneurship. It's about putting a dent in the universe. It's about trying to create something that hasn't existed before. It's about being a samurai, not a rice picker. And with me today is the amazing Phil Libin, an amazing entrepreneur. And, of course, everybody uses Evernote. How many people here in the audience here at RocketSpace use Evernote? Oh, my God. If it's just like everybody just raised their hands. It's got to be a great feeling as an entrepreneur.
It's pretty good. Thank you. I actually prefer it when I go to some other countries and I ask that question and maybe only 10% of the audience raises their hands because that lets me think that there's still room to grow. So
yeah, you're still
if every
hungry.
place was like San Francisco, I'd be kind of worried.
And how many people are using it now? I mean, we see when we go to conferences, it reminds me of the old days, everybody would have Technorati up and would be searching for stuff or whatever. Then it was like they'd have their MySpace page up. And now I just see Evernote everywhere, even on flights when I'm walking back and forth in the bathroom.
We have about 48 million users. And I actually remember the very first time I saw it live. It was kind of like in the wild when I first saw Evernote in the wild. It was in it's probably like 2009 or something, and I was in a Starbucks in Manhattan. I was waiting in line, and the guy in front of me, there was a guy kind of wearing a expensive-looking suit, looked like a lawyer or something, and he had his iPhone out, and he had a Bluetooth headset, and he was yelling at someone. He was just swearing, yelling at someone on his headset while like poking at Evernote on his phone. He was
right.
Like, he had like something in Evernote that was like demonstrating that he was right, and he was just like cursing somebody out as loudly as he can, poking his finger at Evernote. I was standing right behind him, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah. You're like, oh my God, what are my users? Yeah. God, users can be scary sometimes. You don't necessarily want to meet them.
Yeah, I'm like, avert my eyes.
So this company has really exploded in the last year. I mean, when you were last on the program, I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was over a year ago. I think you just hit maybe 100 people. How many people work there now?
I think we're about 285 now, so we're just creeping up on 300.
Wow. And 2/3 of those are in the last year? Or so?
Yeah, almost. Yeah, probably. We almost tripled in size since a year ago. I think we had only about 100 people a year ago today, and now we are about 280, 285. So.
And how long ago was it when it was 10 people?
Well, I guess 2008 was when we launched. We were at about 20 already.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've grown. We pretty much stayed the same size for a couple of years. Like we were roughly at that 20 or 30 size for 2 or 3 years, and then it really took off in 2010 and afterwards.
When you were in that sort of like 2 or 3 years, I guess I would call that like the slow burn, like figuring it out, incubation period. Mm-hmm. Was there a time you thought, when the hell is this going to break out, or is it ever going to break out, and do I need to pull the plug on this? Because Twitter, by the way, had the same thing. It didn't come out of the gate very strong. It came out very slow, in fact, and then it had, a couple of events. Even YouTube came out, and it was only until Lazy Sunday came out, and everybody was looking for it. No, that was actually the story. Like Lazy Sunday broke it out. That was our Lazy Sunday moment. South by Southwest was the moment for Twitter. What was the Evernote moment?
So actually, we have had pretty consistent growth since we launched in June of 2008. It's just that, and so when we're looking at the stats, we're always seeing that we are, growing by roughly 2.5 to 3x per year in everything year over year. It's just that, when you're doubling it, you need to double. If you're starting from very, very low numbers, the first 5 or 10 doubles still don't make it look meaningful.
Right.
So in absolute numbers, I think it didn't really look like Evernote was gaining, millions of users until maybe a year and a half ago. But in terms of the percentage growth, it's been kind of remarkably consistent. And so we just focused on the core metrics, and it never really looked bad. It always looked pretty decent.
Did the iPad have a major impact on the growth and the people's understanding of the product? I know for me it did.
Yeah, definitely. So we were super psyched about the iPad. We were kind of hoping that Apple would come out with a tablet. When all the rumors started circling around, and we were all gathered around the PCs when they were making the announcement. And as soon as they announced that they had an iPad, I got a call from a reporter. I forget where it was. Maybe it was TWiST or something. It was one of the Apple publications, and they said we're looking for quotes from developers about whether or not they're planning on supporting the iPad. And so I gave them my quote, and then the story ran a couple of days later, and they had a bunch of CEOs, and all the quotes were very nuanced. It was like a paragraph or two about how we're very optimistic, or we're going to look at this, and it's unproven, and my quote was we're going to support the hell out of it. And
You just
that's all
knew.
I said. We're definitely going to do it. And so that day, Apple put out the physical dimensions of what it was going to be. And so we cut out pieces of cardboard into iPad shapes, and we carried around cardboard, and we did all of the work on cardboard to just get ready for it. This was months before there was a simulator or anything. It definitely it had a big impact, but so did iPhone. So did Android. So did the Mac App Store, and we've kind of killed ourselves to be on all of these new important devices on the day that they launched, so we can piggyback off of all of the massive publicity, from the manufacturers and the carriers and the app stores, and that's worked out well.
And I noticed that you guys, you're on BlackBerry. We are, yeah. You are. And the amount of platforms you're on right now is pretty staggering. And a lot of people say, gosh, there's too many platforms to build for. You got to focus on one and get it right. Of course, Instagram did that, right? They took them forever to launch the Android version.
Yeah.
You've taken an opposite approach. You're saying we're going to be everywhere. We're going to be excellent. We're going to be made for that dimension, as opposed to doing less. Who's right? Who's wrong?
Well, we have I think a kind of a lack of focus and just laziness about how we think about things, and we go with that. We own that.
Yeah. So you have ADD. You like doing a lot of different projects, so you just try to make that a strength instead of a weakness.
It works for us. We said we want to be everywhere. We want Evernote to be your external brain, and eventually, hopefully, it'll just be implanted in your brain. But until that magical day, we just want it to be on every device you touch. And so any viable platform we'll develop for, and it's fun. And we get really great developers that way. And we do everything native. That was actually the big decision. Is right from the beginning, we said no lowest common denominator crap. No HTML5. It's just all native on every platform.
So you took the opposite approach of Zuckerberg, because he said he was going to go HTML5.
Yeah.
And famously, the Facebook app was not great.
Yeah, and that explains why he's had no success.
Right. In mobile, it's been challenging, yeah.
But yeah, we went native right from the beginning because we just wanted to do awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And it's more expensive from a point of view of it's more expensive in that we have to have lots more developers developing stuff, and our teams, we have independent teams building all the different versions, and they compete with each other to see who can make the best version, and they steal each other's ideas and they leapfrog each other, and we don't have consistency as a goal. There is no goal to make different versions of Evernote consistent with each other, because I think what happens if you make consistency a goal, you wind up achieving it through mediocrity. You achieve consistency by having everything be equally crappy.
Got it.
Does
that mean if BlackBerry, since it has a keyboard, and the shortcuts happen to be really good, or go with it?
Yeah, exactly. So we try to make every version of Evernote the best possible thing it could be on that platform, and not at all think about making them the same. Mm-hmm. We kind of want consistency to emerge through excellence. So we figure once we've achieved near perfection in the apps, which we totally haven't yet, but we're getting slightly better, then it'll just feel consistent because your brain will interpret excellence as this is natural. It should work like this. It'll sort of feel right. So we made those investments early on, and it's worked for us. But again, other people have gone totally different directions, and that's worked for them too. So I don't know that there's a magic answer.
And who is, I was talking to somebody, and they were talking, like, they started with Evernote, and then they sort of dropped off of it. They came back to it. And people seem to be confused with who your competition is. Is the competition Dropbox? Is it Google Docs? Is it Microsoft Word? Was it Delicious? What exactly, who exactly are you competing with? And please don't give the corny answer, we don't have competition.
Well, I mean, the main competition to Evernote, the main alternative to using Evernote is, leading a miserable and disorganized life, right? It's doing nothing.
He kind of answered it. That was a clever way of answering. We don't have competition. I like
it. We have a ton of competition, but the vast majority of our users aren't coming from any competitive products, and that's true anytime you have a quickly growing industry. So, do a lot of people who used to use OneNote now use Evernote? Yeah, probably.
Okay.
But as a percentage of our users, how many of them are coming from OneNote as opposed to nothing?
Right.
At most, it's probably less than 1%, right?
But if people do adopt Evernote, their usage of Microsoft Word is going to plummet. The usage of Google Docs is going to go down significantly.
Maybe. For Microsoft Word, I think the usage is going to go down just because I think there's less and less reason for people to use Microsoft Word now. I think the whole idea of Office, I think Microsoft had the monopoly on the concept of productivity. Like, Office was the definition of productivity for a long time. But that idea that, in order to be productive, what you need is a word processor and a spreadsheet and a database and PowerPoint. That's just kind of a weird concept, right? That concept was created before smartphones and tablets and app stores. This was a 25-year-old idea.
Right.
And so of those basic things in Microsoft Office, which ones are still deeply relevant? Well, I couldn't live without Excel. But I'm not sure that everyone should say that, but certainly a lot of people use Excel and should use Excel. I don't use Word very much at all.
No.
Don't really need it for much. I don't even know what a database is anymore, Microsoft Access. I don't use that. So I don't think that it's Evernote is causing a decline in the usage of Office. I think it's just that idea hasn't kept up. In terms of Google Docs, I don't know. I use Google Docs quite a lot. We use it. We use Google Docs a lot at Evernote. We use Dropbox a lot at Evernote. A lot of people at Google and Dropbox use Evernote. So I don't think there's competition there.
So when should somebody fire up a document in Evernote and do collaboration on it versus do it in a Google Doc? If you're internally using Google Docs, what do people do internally? Do you have some people prefer to send you an invite over to an Evernote document, some people send it to the Google Doc, and then other people put the Excel in the Dropbox, and that's okay?
So I think everyone is kind of figuring out what are the optimal ways to use this.
Right.
For me, personally, the way I use it is I think Google Docs is great for real-time collaboration, which is something that I do very rarely.
Right.
But when I do them, Google Docs is great. We basically use them when we're in a meeting and we want to have a Google Doc open and multiple people are literally in the meeting typing stuff in.
Right.
I don't like that use case most of the time. I think it's not super natural. I don't think the human brain has evolved into naturally thinking about real time things are happening. People don't interact in real time. They take turns. The kindergarten concept is we take turns, not everyone go at once.
Right.
So when we need to send around files, where the structure of the files and the file system matters, when I need to go, file, open menu in some app and open a file, then Dropbox is great for that. And Evernote isn't. And so when we're sending mock-ups of new versions of our website, and we actually need the whole site with HTML structure, we're using Dropbox for that.
Right.
Evernote is really much more about capturing ideas and information and searching it and relating it to each other. So we're using everything. We're using all of those things at once. But where the boundaries are, that's fluid and it's going to change. And of course, there's going to be some overlap. But if you focus on the overlap, I think you kind of miss the larger point, which is let's just make something great together.
And is it that this sort of next generation of the workforce maybe has a little more fluidity in using multiple tools, perhaps? Whereas when you went to work, I don't know, in the 80s, or the 90s, it was well, here's your desk and here's your office, and or here's your WordPerfect and here's your Lotus 123. We use the WordPerfect Lotus 123 suite at this company, and pick your company based on which word processor they use.
Yeah.
Now it's sort of we'll just use whatever tool happens to be fit for the situation.
Yeah, I think the first job I had, I think we used Wang for word processors.
Wow,
it was kind of cool.
That's 80.
That was in the 80s sometime. 80s, yeah. I was a punk ass kid. I just knew about computers, and I saw the word processor for the first time. I'm what the hell is that? That's a Wang. I was
So let me ask you this: being a fan of the product, and I live in my email, when people say in your senior leadership meetings or in your all-hands meeting, we have to be in the email business, what do you say?
Well, we don't.
You notice how when I ask the question, I just assume that that's a high level,
Yeah, I mean, we don't.
It comes up, right?
We have to be in the email business.
Like email is where the documents are, and it's the sort of central hub. I mean, I just know at some point Evernote will have email.
Yeah, I mean, email is pretty broken, and like I'm really a victim of email. Like I don't deal with it particularly well. I think I literally have like 90,000 unread messages. At least like the little icon. I'm kind of seeing how high it'll go, but like I think the little mail icon on my dock says like 89,000 on it now.
Yeah, it's soul crushing.
But I don't think there's any reason to replace email. I don't think you set out saying like we're going to kill email. I think email has been abused, so a lot of people are using email for things that they really shouldn't be. And we're definitely interested in having Evernote and Sketch in particular take some of the burden off of email by giving you ways to communicate that are much more consistent with how your brain has evolved over hundreds of millions of years. I think that the main thing is like so much technology, especially computer technology in the past 20 years, has not been created with any attention paid to how your brain already works. It was created based on like what could the computers do. And so like the workflows were based much more on the limits and the technical limits of the networking and the computers. And now that the technology has advanced so much, we can finally design software and ask the question, well, how does your brain want to do it? Like, how are you already evolved to do this?
What's an example of the computer industry getting it incredibly wrong and your brain working a different way in your mind?
Well, email, I think, is a good example of that. And email, of course, just copied memos.
Right.
And memos were another bad example of that. Like, when did people start communicating by sending, like, passive-aggressive written messages to each other? Like, that's in the past 50 years.
Right.
Right? Like, that was not a main, like, for hundreds of thousands of years, humans communicated by, like, pointing and hitting each other. Right.
And not dissimilar to the memo,
well,
in ways.
And we kind of want to go back to that, like with Sketch. Like we kind of see Sketch as, in some ways, like more atavistic, like more primitive than email, because you're like, I like that.
Right. So I'm on a web page and I highlight this is cool and put an arrow on it and say cool.
Or I'm reading a contract.
Right.
And I want to say yes, no, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And I want to do that just like fling.
Cavemen no like.
Fling things to you. Yeah, exactly.
Non-compete, no good.
Yeah, exactly.
Liquidation preference, die.
Yeah, totally. And
Phil no like.
And it's hard to do that with
right.
Like it takes a certain amount of computational ability and UX design to it in order to kind of make something that feels as natural as the caveman with a sharp stick.
Right.
But we're getting there.
That is a fascinating way to look. I wonder how many people here were using Sketch before Evernote bought it. How many people are Sketch users, nice and high? Oh, that's interesting. How many people are Sketch users post Evernote buying it? How many people discovered Sketch after they bought it? That's interesting. It was almost an equal number, like maybe half of the folks. So how critical was the Sketch acquisition for you guys? Is that the only acquisition you've done? I can't think of another one.
No, I think we've done 5 acquisitions, but they're small. So we bought.
That was like a 2-person team or 3-person team.
Sketch was a 2-person team, out of Australia, and we just love Sketch. Like we all use Sketch at Evernote. In fact, I think Sketch was like the first ever video we made. Like if you go to our blog and you go like way back to like one of the very first blog posts, there's like a video that we made about like how much we love Sketch and how to use it with Evernote, and it's like hilariously bad, like the production values and like everything. And we just love this idea that it was an efficient way to communicate. And so we bought it, and we spent about a year working on it and really making it like introducing it on every platform. It was just on Mac when we bought it, and we put it out on iPhone and iPad and Android and Windows now, and spent about a year on it to really get it to feel like a new generation of communication. That's in some ways that's gone great. In terms of all the numbers, they're like way up. I think when we bought Sketch, it was like 100,000 people using it. And now it's 10, 12 million people using it.
Wow.
So all of the metrics are fantastic. But then when we did the big Sketch 2.0 release a couple of months ago, we had this like massive blowback from people.
Was the first thing I said to you when I saw you was, what the F did you do to Skitch?
Yeah.
Because it's now a totally different UI, and I like the old one. I've been using it for 5 years.
Yeah, it's. I think we really underestimated kind of how deeply ingrained some of the things had gotten to people. And so we wound up, at first, we said, well, yeah, everyone hates change, people get over it. And then, then we started paying attention. We said, no, actually, some of these people are right, and we need to go back and redo some things that we'd gotten rid of. So we made the fairly difficult decision to actually pause new development of Skitch for 3 months, so we can kind of catch up and get it back to to where it was before.
But we hear a lot of times, from the pundits or from people who are successful, you have to take the Steve Jobs approach. People don't know what they like. Tell them what they like. Give them what they want, and ignore their feedback. Right? Like there is a certain line of thinking that true innovation comes from ignoring the users and giving them something more delightful than they can conceive themselves.
Yeah, totally.
And which is right, or why was it because you guys didn't perform as best you could, or was it because they loved it so much, or is that advice wrong? How do you reconcile it?
I think user feedback is really good at some things and really bad at other things. And
what's it good at?
Well, what it's bad at is telling you what you should be building, like new stuff. And what it's good at is telling you what you fucked up.
Right.
Like the internet is the greatest device ever invented to concentrate, hatred and vitriol to like its most.
Yeah, it's called Reddit.
Yeah, it's mostly fundamental
portions of Reddit.
Right? And so user feedback is super valuable when you're looking at the criticism.
Right.
And you got to take it seriously, and it's very important, and it's like very information rich. And
is information rich a way of saying like it's overly intense?
Oh, it's very unpleasant. Like we get death threats. We change fonts, we get death threats. Like I've had comments.
Yeah.
I've literally had comments.
You chose Verdana, not us.
Stick
with Helvetica. You literally got a death threat over a font?
We've gotten death threats over. There are comments like on some of our early YouTube videos that I'm the narrator of.
Yeah.
And people don't like my voice. And so there are comments that say, whoever does the voiceover for this video ought to be found and beaten to death.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. I respectfully disagree.
Yeah. Right.
But they're right.
Right.
Not that I ought to be beaten to death, not for that.
But that your voice is not made for radio.
But that there's no reason that I should be the person, like my voice isn't the right voice for that voiceover. And
so if you can get over the tone and the packaging, there's something to be gleaned from it, I guess.
There's tons of super useful information, and you just have to train yourself to to interpret it correctly. But it's there.
And when you see Apple's reaction to Maps, let's say, right, like the product wasn't perfect. I don't think it was as bad as people made it out to, because I never had a problem using it.
No,
but
it's fine.
Yeah, it seemed like it was fine. I mean, you could find like aha moments, like, excuse me, that's screwed up, but I never found them. Well, the average user is not going to find them.
I was in our office in Redwood City, and I was trying to get to K&L Wines, which is like a big famous wine store in Redwood City, a few blocks away, and I wasn't sure exactly where it was. So I typed in K&L Wines into Apple Maps. The map pops up right away, and I'm looking at it kind of going like, oh, wait, I thought, was this Woodside? Is Redwood City? It's Kuala Lumpur. Oh. Yes, of course. When I said K&L Wines, I meant a random wine store in Kuala Lumpur.
Right, and just be careful not to hit the walking button.
Just buy tickets now. Yeah.
Walk 8,752 hours.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. Like I kind of laughed at that, but it's not like, now what'll I do? My life is over.
Right. Now I'll never buy another Apple product again.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm swore off booze.
And so their reaction to it, though, obviously somebody got fired, in part because of that, according to the reports, and the apology letter. Do you think that was appropriate? I mean, is that how you would have handled it? And how did you handle it with the stakeholders who obviously busted their ass to put that new version out that, some vocal minority hated?
Yeah. Well, you have to strike a balance. So we looked at it. We looked at every comment. Mm-hmm. And we said, okay, like what's right and what's wrong, and which of this thing has merit. And we actually realized that a lot of these comments had merit, and we decided what to do. And our decision was that 99% of what people were complaining about like we should address one way or the other. And we wound up addressing it. And we talked to the team of people who made it, and we explained what we were doing. And I think at the end it turned out really well. I think.
Well, more people know what Skitch is, that's for sure, and you know exactly how valuable it is to people. So I think it gives you an indication of what to focus on. Right?
But there is, exactly, and there is training that you have to do. So like when you come to work at Evernote, the magic thing about it is it's hard to work at Evernote for a few months and not have your direct work be used by millions of people. So that's great, and that's probably the best way to motivate a high quality person is to just have their work matter so much and so quickly. And but that comes with some training, and part of that training now is like, people are going to hate it, and you have to interpret that correctly.
Right. Like in other words, don't read the YouTube comments.
Well, not
read them in context.
Not for your first few years, at least. Yeah. Don't let your mom read them.
Let me stop for a minute and thank our sponsors. Thank you to NewRelic, which does which helps you do real-time user experience, code level, app performance, server resources, all that kind of great stuff. Customers include Skullcandy, Spotify, Niketzillo, and Vonage. And if you want to get a This Week in Startups t-shirt, go to newrelic.com/thisweekin. newrelic.com/thisweekin. Thanks again to NewRelic for sponsoring the program, and I know my audience really appreciates it. That's great. And while we're at it, I'll thank SnapTerms, the other awesome sponsor. If your website doesn't have a proper terms of service or privacy policy, you're risking costly litigation. You ever have anybody sue you over your terms of service?
No, but we've actually invested quite a lot in having a English readable, sensible terms of service, which is strikingly difficult to do. But,
right, and SnapTerms is simple, affordable, and fast, and uses funny, plain language. I didn't even set them up for that one, but that's what they do. You can go see thisweekin.com/legal to see our funny SnapTerms. Terms of service, $149. You'll get a free NDA with every order. Go ahead and check out snapterms.com. Yada, yada, yada. And I know my audience truly loves and thanks everybody at SnapTerms. Unbelievable.
Yeah. We spent more than $140 on our
more than $149,000. More than $149,000.
Probably more than that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
and
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Well, it's particularly important to us because we're kind of asking people to trust us with their life's memories.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. The majority of the users of a freemium service are obviously free, but their expectation now, when they get a free product, is no different than the paid ones. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, and I think that's justified. I think
is it?
I think so because so what if you've paid a few $100 or you haven't? Like you've made the investment of your time, you've made the investment of your energy, of your attention span. That's important, right? And for most of the types of people who use Evernote, their time and attention is worth more than what we would charge them. So yeah, I mean, I think
that's a high level way to think of it. I think because most people say if you got it for free, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, I don't think that's right.
Why is it not right? On a sort of running a company kind of way.
Well, I think we put the emphasis at Evernote. The free is the main product. Like the free version of Evernote is the goal of it is not to get you to pay. Right? It's not a teaser. It's not a come on. The goal of it is to make you use it and fall in love and use it every day for the rest of your life and never feel like you have to pay for anything, and invest emotionally into it, invest your time into it, and get your friends using it. And the more you use it, the more you come back, the more likely you are to pay for something. And so I think companies that see the free version as a gimmick, as a way to get people to pay are well, for certain types of business, I think they're making a mistake. And for us, it's the customer commitment is their time and their attention, and eventually their money. But I think if we took the attitude where, well, you didn't pay anything, so what do you expect?
So what percentage of people do pay for Evernote with cash, or approximately? Low single digits? Double digits?
So that changes with our conversion rate. Well, first of all, let me answer the question first. It doesn't sound like I'm evading it, and then I'll tell you why it's not a particularly useful question.
Yeah.
The conversion rate varies with the time that you use the service. So in the first month of using Evernote, only about 1/3 of users pay for it.
Okay.
But that goes up linearly with time spent using the service. So after a year, 5 or 6% of people are paying. And after 2 years, like 11-ish%. And our oldest users, the ones that have been with us for about 4.5 years, about 25 or 26% of them are paying, like now.
Right.
So it actually gets up pretty high. I mean, it gets up into the
absurd conversion numbers.
Well,
26% is absurd to convert a product.
So it gets up pretty high.
Yeah.
And so the overall percentage, like if you take any given time and you say, what's the overall percentage of people that are paying, that's influenced much more by the average age of your users, by how quickly you're adding new users. So that's
you have to break them into those cohorts.
Right. You got to look at the cohorts, or else it's like you're going to a winery that's got 100 years of vintages, and you're sort of just like taking a little bit from each barrel and mashing them together and tasting it, and kind of like saying, on average, this tastes 5%.
It gets incredibly valuable, and therefore people convert.
Yeah, the longer you use Evernote, the more valuable it seems to you. And the more valuable it seems to you, the more likely you are to pay for it.
How is the sort of enterprise version going, and how are enterprise looking at it? Is it still like this, somebody brought it to work like, Yammer, or is it sort of tipped over to, this is more like Microsoft Office and the IT department's managing it?
Well, so we don't target enterprises. We do have a version called Evernote Business, which we launched just a few weeks ago in December. And that's really targeting companies that look like us. So it's small and medium companies or small and medium teams within companies that are knowledge workers, that have a particular way that they relate to their employees. We basically build it for us to have a good experience using Evernote to run Evernote. And companies that want the same thing can use it. And it's going great. I think, again, it's only been for sale for maybe 3 weeks, and we have more than 1,500 companies using it. You're paying for it already.
How much does it cost? How do you charge for that?
It's $10 per month per user, per seat. The vast majority of our users, the vast majority of Evernote's existing users use Evernote at work.
Right.
Like of our core product. I think we just did a survey recently, and I think it was 66%. So it was 2/3 of Evernote users use Evernote at work for work stuff, but also for personal stuff. So the users are the people who are already taking it into the company, and the goal of Evernote Business was just to give them, make it be a nicer experience at work.
And so, what is the feature that the enterprise, business one, not enterprise, has that the sort of general version doesn't, the normal version doesn't?
It's not different software. You're using the same clients. It's a different service level. It's a kind of a business class service level.
Somebody will pick up the phone. I can call somebody, or.
You can talk to a real person if you use it. You also get better sharing and collaboration and knowledge discovery of what your coworkers know. So the idea is, like, if you're using Evernote by yourself, like if you're playing the single player version of Evernote, it's great. All you really need to do is capture everything, make it very easy for you to capture everything, and then search for stuff, because you kind of know what you know, right? You know what's in your own Evernote account because you put it there. So you're like rarely surprised by something that's in there. Sometimes you don't remember it, so you need help finding it, but you kind of know what's in there. But as soon as you start working with a team of people, like, how do you know what your team knows? How do you have that situational awareness? And that's what Evernote Business gives you, because if multiple people are using Evernote, every time you're doing anything, you see related notes from your team members about whatever it is that you're doing.
How do they, so if I was to do a search for, NewRelic or whatever, I could see, somebody took a meeting with them, or somebody has a document from them, or something that they shared.
Sure.
Or somebody took a sketch of the website.
Sure, yeah. But and that's pretty cool, but that's actually that's the most obvious thing. It would even work if, like, let's say you and I, if I was taking notes right now.
Right.
Like if I had my Mac open right here and I was typing, sitting on stage with Jason at TWiST Live, I was just taking a note.
Right.
It would see if any of my coworkers had any information about you. So up would pop. It would say, Rhonda's got notes about Jason.
Right.
So I don't even have to search for it. I don't have to go in the mode of, now is the time on Sprockets where I'm querying to see if any of my coworkers know something about Jason.
Right. It just
I just
automatically.
Say, I'm doing something with Jason, and it says, by the way, there's some relevant information here, and here's the person who knows about it, so I can just go and ask her.
And so that means you have to toggle on or off if each of those pieces are public or private? And how do you manage that? And then you also said that 2/3 is at work and 1/3 is at home.
Yeah.
So then you're starting to get into Jason Calacanis at Gmail versus Jason at Inside.com. Who owns which account?
Yeah. So
and who owns which data?
So that's all really super important. So the philosophy is it's kind of kindergarten understanding of fairness. So you own everything. Mm-hmm. Everything you put into Evernote is yours. We never look at it. We don't data mine it. We don't sell it to anyone. We don't do any
retargeting of ads because of it.
Nothing.
Yeah.
We don't do ads. We don't do anything.
Yeah.
So it's your data. Our business model does not depend on us doing anything clever with your data. or anything clever with you.
Right.
There's fundamentally, it's about alignment. Like we try to crush any kind of a conflict of interest between what we want and what our investors want and what our partners want and what our users want. So everyone just wants the same thing. And if you're using Evernote, if you sign up for an Evernote business account, you still have all of your personal stuff. And your personal stuff is still personal, and your company can't see it. Like your boss can't see it, your company has no visibility, and you still have your personal notebooks. If you leave the business, you still have all the personal stuff. You take it with you.
Right.
But if you're in Evernote Business, you also have business notebooks, and anything you put into business notebooks are available for this kind of serendipitous discovery and sharing and management. And companies can say, well, if it's stuff in business notebooks can get assigned to different people as employees move around. So there's this continuity of data and discovery of data. But you do it at the notebook level, and it's totally up to you, the user, what you put into a personal notebook and what you put into a business notebook and who you want to share with. Interesting.
Yeah. That solves the problem.
We think so. I mean, it's a different approach to it. But in this case, I think Evernote Business it's kind of an interesting position for us because this is the first time we're almost making a political statement. Like, Evernote Business makes a statement about how we think companies ought to relate to their employees. Because if companies don't relate to their employees in this way, then it's just not going to be a good experience. Like, Evernote Business is not for them.
Right.
So we think that it's really, and it's the way that
because authenticating twice is lame?
Authenticating twice is lame, but moreover, like, if companies fundamentally set up all their processes to distrust their employees, like if the internal processes are about restricting what you can do and saying no, then it's just philosophically not the right product.
Right.
If the general philosophy is, look, I trust my employees, and 99.9% of the time that trust is warranted, and the very rare instance where someone is a bad actor, I'll deal with that separately. But I'm not gonna make everyone's legitimate use case a little bit worse because I'm trying to restrict something. Then Evernote Business is sort of meant to be beautiful in that environment. And I think if we were launching this 20 years ago, 80% of companies would never buy it because 80% of companies would be like, well, fundamentally, we don't trust our employees.
Yeah.
But I think and 10 years ago, it would have been 50%.
Right.
But now I think, again, among small and medium businesses, I think 80% are saying, yeah, fine, this is exactly right.
Yeah, well, employees are doing now the jobs of 2 or 3 people typically, and
and everyone's a knowledge worker.
And everyone's a knowledge worker. Yeah.
If your company's full of knowledge workers, I mean, this is not altruism, right?
Right.
Like, I don't treat my employees like adults out of a sense of altruism.
Right.
I do it because I can't beat good quality software out of unhappy people. Like,
right.
It doesn't work like that.
Right.
Right. Like, if I could, who knows?
Right.
But I can't, right?
The whole herding of cats thing. Is,
like people have to be in a good frame of mind to produce high quality output. They have to be happy. They have to be reasonably well rested, for a liberal definition of reasonably. They have to feel good about themselves and their work. And if they don't, they're just not going to produce anything, and I'm going to go out of business. So, I think more and more companies are understanding that. And every industry is becoming a knowledge worker industry. Like, we've got customers that work in mines, like coal mines.
Right.
And they're knowledge workers. Like, there's people with iPads, and they go down to the mine and they take pictures and take notes, and then there's no Wi-Fi down there.
Right.
And then they as soon as they come up, it syncs, everything. So
right.
Mining is a knowledge industry now. Everything's a knowledge industry, and more businesses understand that. And I think as they do, they'll become much more receptive to kind of the Evernote way of doing things.
And how is running a business today in this market for what now has become a high growth startup? I mean, we hear all about it's incredibly hard to get employees, obviously, and scarcity, and 3 people leaving companies to start, leaving big companies or medium-sized companies to start, the next YC company or next Techstars company, whatever. How has it been scaling the business? What have you learned? Because is this the first time you've scaled a business like this?
Evernote's the biggest thing I've been involved with. Yeah. My previous 2 companies, I think, got up to, the first one only got up to 12 people before we sold it, and the second one, I think, got up to maybe 40. Mm-hmm. So this is an order of magnitude already bigger than.
So 10x what you've done.
Yeah.
How is it different? What have you learned?
It's a lot better. It's a lot more fun. It's a lot more stressful because what it turns out is, so if I ever write a book about Evernote, about my experience with Evernote, I've already got the title picked out. The title is going to be Good Problem to Have. And the whole point is, when you're sitting around at the beginning, when you got a startup, you're sitting around and you go oh man, what's going to happen when we're going to run out of room at this data center? And you go oh man, that'll be a good problem to have.
Right.
And then you go oh, what's going to happen when we're going to need to release software simultaneously in 13 different languages? And you'll be oh, that'll be a good problem to have.
Yeah.
And then it turns out when you have those problems, you're wow, these problems suck.
Yeah.
like good problems to have are just as bad as bad problems. In fact, they're kind of worse because you have so much to lose now, and they're even more stressful. They take even more work.
More money, more problems.
Yeah.
More customers, more problems. More users, more problems.
And Evernote right now is like solidly in the good problem to have category. It's like every day it's something where our hair is on fire trying to do something. And I described it to somebody, and someone who's like, "Oh, well, that's a good problem to have." And I'm like, "I want to strangle people."
Yeah. Oh, well, Windows 8's coming out.
Yeah.
Great, good problem to have. And so, what do you think about Windows 8? I wonder. You're on the platform. You're on the Surface.
Yeah, definitely. We're on.
They pay you to be on the Surface.
No,
they didn't underwrite it.
No. Well,
you could have
yes.
asked them to, right?
Well. Yes, we could have. We certainly could have been paid for it. We had offers, but we never took that seriously. We never let those discussions go anywhere because we are fundamentally not interested in being a body shop. Like,
right.
If you have to pay us to build software for your device, then if anything's going to convince us not to build software for your device, it's the fact that you have to think you have to pay us to do it.
So you think it's a good idea to do it? You think it's going to have some level of success?
Yeah, I decided to do it for Windows Phone as well, for Windows Phone and for Windows 8, because I was impressed with the products. I thought the products were non-trivially good.
Me too. What did you like about it?
I liked that it was different. Like it was like there were good ideas in there. There were different ideas. It was not a clone of anything.
Right.
And I think the user experience is pretty nice. I think it's kind of flatter and more two-dimensional, which I'm saying kind of in a good way.
Yeah.
It's approachable. I kind of like the vibe of it. I like
Metro. You mean the tiles?
I like the tiles.
Swiping,
yeah, I like what they're doing with multiple applications at the same time.
I was about to bring that up. What is that called when you have like a 1/3, 2/3?
You know, the big problem I have with Microsoft is I have no idea what anything's called anymore.
They have to. Is anybody here from Microsoft? They have this problem too. Oh, hey, Microsoft people. What the hell am I? What should we call? No, this is. I'll tell you. This is the problem. The company's too goddamn old now because it's Microsoft. Company name, Windows, product, Surface, which is like a hardware.
Which used to be, something else used to be called that.
It was like the hardware, yeah. And
then
like
it's table, like the
RT or NT, right? It's a runtime or like professional version, and then maybe there should be two versions. So now we're at 1, 2, 3, fork to 2. And then there's the display on it, the interface, which is Metro.
Yeah.
So it's Windows 8, Surface, Microsoft Windows 8 Surface, RT or NT with the Metro interface.
And now, like on the phone, there's like Windows Phone 7, Windows Phone 8. Now there's like Windows Phone 7.8.
Yeah, they got to just say, I think what they should do is they should just call it Surface.
Yeah, or just...
and then people will know. It's like, oh, that's the Windows logo. It's Surface.
But Surface used to be the name of something else. Like, why would they reuse a name? Anyway, the
naming
Surface was
you're right, because Surface was the desktop table. But the point is,
no sense
what do you call the thing when you have one window open and then two and they flip? You have two windows open at the same time. Different group of people, right? These guys, they've worked there. They don't know. Classic. No. But the truth is, it's a great product. Xbox is a great product. They're doing great product there.
I gave Steve Ballmer a suggestion for what to call the Surface. I met. I don't know Mr. Ballmer, but I ran into him in Seoul, of all places. So I was speaking.
So you're in Korea. You guys, you're at a noodle shop. You're having some Jim Young.
Yeah, basically. And I was speaking at a conference, and I look at the agenda, and I'm like, Steve Ballmer is on after me. So I sent him a note. I just guessed at his email address. Just guessed.
Yeah.
And he wrote back.
Steve.Ballmer at Microsoft. Ballmer.
He writes back like pretty much right away, saying, "Yeah, come on over." And nicest guy, and invited me to come over and have lunch with him up in Seattle. And so I did that. I flew out to meet with him, and I had the best 2-hour conversation just about. I was just asking him CEO questions. Like, we didn't really talk shop. I was just asking him basic, how do you scale a company? How do you scale a business? I said, it's kind of a stupid question, but what does a public company CFO do? I kind of want to know.
Yeah.
And he best answers ever. Amazing. Really, really smart, really talented guy. And he can turn the crazy on and off.
It is true.
It's true.
I've been in a room with him when he has.
He's totally normal, totally sensible.
And then all of a sudden he's and it's because, and he's just stands up and gets out of his chair.
Well,
did you do that in your meeting?
Well, what he did was he's explaining things to me, and he goes, and sometimes you have to do this in a crazy way, like this. And then all of a sudden you're
the crazy comes out.
The crazy comes out, and you're like, and then it's over, and then he's like the normal person. You're like, whoa,
awesome,
yeah. But I gave him a suggestion. That was my one contribution.
Let me hear it.
Is I said, I know you guys are coming out with this thing, and I know Surface. You kind of think it's a good name because it's sort of Windows-y related because it's like a Windows Surface, and I got a better idea. I think you should call it Windows Pain.
I see what you did there.
He didn't like it.
Well, you know what? I was going to tell him that you should have told him that the cover is called the sill.
There you go.
You got the window pane sill, RT.
Right. That's right. But I honestly think that like the confusion is in naming is like their biggest problem.
It is a big problem. They got to just
fix it.
Yeah, just drop names.
Yeah.
When in doubt, cut the 2 worst names out of the 3 named product.
I got a slogan for Windows 8. This just be 8 is great.
Great.
8 is great.
Just be great and just replace the E with an 8.
Windows great.
Windows great. Awesome. Windows great. Coming. See, that was like a brainstorming here in real time.
And scene.
And cut. Thank you. Now, questions from our audience. You're going to get to ask questions. And you know what? I'm so proud of my audience because they're so smart. They're going to ask. You're going to see.
All right.
They're going to ask great questions.
Right.
Microsoft, said early on, like, we're just going to be the operating system. But then apps obviously became critical. They put the 2 together. Obviously, Steve Jobs had a belief that you had to have the whole ecosystem and has done tremendous with that. Most successful company in the history of companies now, obviously. Largest hedge fund in the world just based on their cash, $120 billion, and largest market cap company, yada, yada, yada. Does that mean the future of Evernote is at some point to have its own hardware? Have you ever had that conversation? Like 5 years from now, we should have our own hardware that's made, or should we have like maybe peripherals, like you make some Bluetooth thing that automatically takes pictures, or Google Glassy type thing? What happens in the hardware discussion?
We actually, the original idea for Evernote was hardware.
Really?
So it started with hardware. Like the idea was hardware. We were going to make this egg, and I thought it was very important that it be an egg because I just like eggs. Just the shape is kind of cool. And it was going to be an egg. I think I mentioned that before. And if we were going to be talking, what I would do is I would take this egg out of my pocket and I would put it down here, and it would just sit there. And it would maybe glow blue or something, right?
Neat.
And it would just record everything. It would record audio and video of everything that we were saying. And it wouldn't be covert. Like you would see that they had a goddamn blue.
I would probably put my egg too.
Yeah, right there.
Blue.
And it would record everything. Yeah. And if you had happened to say something interesting, I could just tap it after you said something. So you'd be like, oh, yeah, let me connect you to my friend, whatever. And I'm like, afterwards, right? And that's it. And it basically just like captured everything. And then it gave me this really nice software for kind of reliving all of that time. And it was just like this universal memory capture.
Life casting egg.
Thing, yeah. And that was the original idea. And actually the very first business plan that I pretended to write was all about that. And then...
Do you still have that?
No, because I never actually wrote it. I just
you didn't have Evernote?
It. Yeah. I do have the very first plan I actually did write, and has a funny mistake in it. But anyway, but then we decided, okay, it's kind of ridiculous to actually build this egg ourselves, and maybe phones will get smarter, and maybe your phone can actually do all of this stuff, and then we don't have to build it. So the original idea was hardware. And we may come back to it. Now, I think it would be a huge mistake to come back to it just because Apple had done it. Like that's just not a good way to think about it. Like anytime you're like, well, the most successful company in the world did this, therefore we should too, and that just doesn't follow. But it would be nice to do something. And now we're doing it through partnerships. So we do have very nice hardware partnerships that are going in that direction.
Oh, really? So we might see hardware to capture Evernote. To capture your life into Evernote.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's already a great partnership with the LiveScribe pen.
Sure.
Moleskine notebook.
Right.
Samsung,
How does the Moleskine one work? I mean, you basically write. I know how the LiveScribe work is when you write, you sync your pen, and then it puts it in as images.
Yeah, Moleskine is.
Anybody here ever used the LiveScribe? LiveScribe?
Yeah.
Do you still use it? Oh, you're still using it. Yeah. I bought those for everybody in the company, and nobody used them.
The Moleskine one is actually, and that thing's selling out like crazy.
So how does the Moleskine work? You scan in the image, you take a picture of it?
So it's just a notebook. There's a beautiful notebook, and you write in it with a pen, and then you take a picture with our iPhone app when it's done. And the app knows how to deal with a picture from Moleskine page. It like recognizes the
curvature.
Page, it fixes it. It puts it into Evernote, and then there's also these stickers that you can stick onto the page, and those get interpreted automatically as tags or notebooks. And so you just basically take notes, then you take a picture, and then you get the note being, it's fully geotagged, it's got the timestamp, you can search any of it.
Wow.
But really, it's just about having a really beautiful notebook, because some people really prefer that.
Right.
They prefer to take notes on paper. And it's actually kind of interesting. Like if I'm taking notes in a meeting, and I've got my laptop open, and I'm taking notes in Evernote, like some people perceive that as being rude.
It is interesting. When Roloff from Sequoia was in a board meeting, he said, "I'm taking notes in Evernote. I'm not doing email."
Yeah, well, he's got to
because I had a no device rule in meetings,
right? So
which I've since changed.
Well, so we actually, our R&D department solved that problem by coming out with stickers that say, "I'm not being rude, I'm taking notes in Evernote." So you can stick on, Roloff's got one on the back of his laptop.
That was in the 5.0 version?
Yeah, exactly.
Upload the software.
But it's still sometimes she was rude, whereas, if I'm at a meeting and I'm taking notes with a Moleskine notebook, it actually goes the other way. Not only
now you're
rude,
considered.
Yeah, now it's like, oh, the guy, he's writing down what I'm saying.
And he's got
attention.
the leather, it's leather. It's not a yellow legal pad.
Yeah, now really I'm just drawing, Minecraft maps on the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes it feel.
This is why
like
the back of the laptop should be transparent and project what people are doing. That's my feeling on it. Then you could actually reverse it. You could see what I'm typing.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea.
Kind of interesting. When is this meeting going to be over?
Yeah, so we're doing much more of that.
What was the thing in the business plan that was a huge mistake when you?
Oh, I said we wrote a business plan, and I said this was probably in 2008, and I wrote currently there are 3 viable platforms for smartphones.
Oh boy.
There's BlackBerry, there is the Symbian, and there's Palm. And it is very unlikely that in the next 5 years, all 3 of these will remain viable. So we think that the smartphone world will shrink to 2 out of these 3 platforms.
Genius.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
Proving once again that nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
And everything can change.
Yeah. So I got it slightly wrong on that. But
is this the company that you're going to die running? And what I mean by that is not that it's going to kill you. I don't mean it's going to kill you, although at times
because of my speaking voice.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I'm not. You're not going to get whacked because of running. But what I mean by that poorly formed question is, can you perceive yourself running another company? And I know that you've had a lot of offers to buy the company. I'm not going to make you respond to them, Apple, but specifically. But if a company like Apple did want to buy it, I don't perceive that you're going to ever sell this company. Am I perceiving correctly?
We certainly don't want to sell the company. We want to make a 100-year startup. That's always been the goal. That's been the goal from the beginning. Evernote's my 3rd startup, and we sold the first 2. And the products we built in the first 2 weren't for us, right? We built e-commerce software from the first one. We built security software for banks and governments in the second one, and it was it was fine. But we always felt like we were building products and companies for somebody else. And we said, look, 3rd time around, let's just build it. Let's only build the products we want to use, and let's build the company we want to keep. So we don't want to sell it.
How come you didn't get that moment in the first 2? Do you think, looking back on it?
Just not that bright.
Just learning the game.
Yeah, I just wasn't that smart. Yeah, I kind of wish I wish I knew, right?
Like at 25,
yeah. I mean, if I
like Zuckerberg did, right? Like I'm going to run this company forever.
If I had a time machine right now, and I can go back and I can give advice to like a younger, skinnier me,
right,
at my first company.
Yeah, no carbs.
Yeah, I would say. Well, first I would say is I would be like, dude, it's okay, because in 15 years you can have a time machine.
Yeah. So you can totally around.
Yeah. But second of all,
the 60s were awesome, by the way. You may want to stop there for a little bit.
Yeah. But second of all, you just build something for yourself, because it's a lot better way to spend your whole life. So yeah. And now it's actually, like, back then I think it would have been bad business advice, but now I think it's like exactly the right business
What
advice.
Changed?
The world is a meritocracy. So the technology world is a meritocracy. It never used to be. And so at my first company, you kept hearing, always remember, Phil, the best product doesn't always win, right? And my second company, always remember, the best product doesn't always win. And people who said that to you, they basically were saying that, yeah, you can have a good product, but that's only one of many things. And you can succeed with a crappy product.
Yes. Sales, distribution,
thuggery. Right, exactly. And now, like, in technology, it just doesn't matter. Like, if you have a great product, you get all the other stuff almost for free. You get massive leverage in your marketing, in your channel, in your distribution. You don't have to worry about that stuff if you have a great product. I mean, you still have to be smart about it, but in my previous 2 companies, they were all software companies. We were probably spending 60% of our overall energy doing things other than creating the product. Mm-hmm. And now we're spending 90% of the product, and everything else comes almost free. And so by far the most important thing right now is to have a great product. And how are you going to make a great product? Well, if you're not even making it for yourself, how are you even going to know when it's great? So I think like your best shot of succeeding today, and this was not the case 10 years ago.
Right.
Like I would have been giving you this advice 10 years ago, and I would have been wrong.
Right.
But
10 years ago was find the market that's growing, find
product market fit, blah blah blah.
Now it's founder market fit.
Yeah, it's just
founder product fit.
Make something great.
Founder product fit is all right. We're going to go to questions from my very highly intelligent audience. You guys know the rules. Don't ask a question like this. Hi, my name is Steve, and my law firm, Steve and Steve, is really awesome at doing non-compete agreements. How do you think you should focus on non-compete agreements as a CEO? Like, in other words, your question should be a really good question, not marketing for yourself. And if you want to say what your favorite guest has been, you can do that. And if you do say Saka, just say Saka, but my second is this person. Okay, go ahead. We have one back here. Kieran's going to run around with the microphone. Really great question for my audience. Go ahead.
Hi, great conversation so far. Phil, what do you think Google Glass is going to do for your product roadmap going forward?
Yeah. So I am guardedly optimistic about Google Glass. Guardedly for NDA reasons. Optimistic because it's fucking awesome. It's going to be great. The experience, let me put it this way. I'm going to make a prediction right now. 2 years from now, if you'll have me back at this stage.
We'll do it exactly for 2 years from today.
2 years from now,
sure.
I will not be sitting out here looking out at you with glasses that don't project anything in my eyeballs.
No.
It'll be barbaric 2 years from now to do it. It'll be like, where is
what
everything?
Percentage of the audience will have them on 2 years from now? Because that'll be the
bet.
bet.
Of this audience?
Of this audience, yeah. What percentage of this audience will have it 2 years from now?
20.
You give 20?
20.
20%.
Of this audience, yeah.
Okay.
But 5 years from now, it'll be 90.
All right. So somebody get that on tape, and let's get a long bet. Somebody put it in their calendar. We'll bet a sushi lunch. I'll take the under.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take the over, I think. We'll discuss the terms later.
Yeah, but it's I think it's going to be I don't know if Google is going to get it right because I don't the glasses aren't out yet. I don't know if at some point it's a fashion thing. I don't know if Google's the right company to do that. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. Maybe the real thing that's going to succeed is will be an Apple version.
Right.
The II, I think it's going to be.
The II.
But someone's going to get it right, and once you've had this type of product on, and you take it off, the world seems duller, less rich, and it's completely. I think it'll be completely addictive, and I think people will adopt it as fast as they adopted cell phones. I really believe it.
Well, when you have the brainstorming or the ideation session, what came up? Like you said, this is the number one thing we should do. Obviously, snapping pictures and documenting the world is obvious, and that's just a given. But what after that?
Well, I don't know that Evernote. We do hope to be on Google Glass, but we don't know exactly what it's going to look like.
Yeah, but what input would you do? Let's assume you have glasses and a camera on your, that have 24-hour battery life. What is the use case?
There's infinite use cases, and
the best ones.
The ones that we can name now aren't going to be the killer ones, right? By definition. But the ones that I would use immediately, once this was possible, would be integration with Evernote Hello, right? So everyone I meet, I'm terrible with names and faces. Mm-hmm. This is causing me a huge amount of stress in my life. I'm really
Jason,
bad with names and faces. I didn't use your name the whole time.
I know.
I kind of forgot.
I understand, Steve.
And that's going to go away. Like, my problem with names and faces is going to go away completely in the next couple of years. That is so amazingly exciting to me.
And it's also going to be like, here are the last photos of your kids or my kids underneath your little profile, so I can say, how is Susan doing? I see she's a horseback rider.
Yeah, I mean, the whole, Terminator.
Kind of creepy.
Well, I mean, the whole, Terminator use case, where he's seeing things like that.
Are you Sarah Connor?
Yeah, so that'll happen, and that'll be good. But there's just going to be it's basically the fact that the internet gave us access to the sum total of all human knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. And then the iPhone gave us the sum total of all human knowledge in your pocket, and the glasses are going to give you the sum total of all human knowledge in your head all the time. And I think that's like a natural progression. And what are we going to use that for? Well, we're going to use it for amazing, world-changing things. Like, at some point, I'm going to be able to buy a virtual Halloween costume so that when you look at me with your glasses, I'm going to be wearing a Darth Vader outfit.
And I'll be wearing Boba Fett.
Yeah.
No, I'll be the Terminator. I need your boots, your motorcycle, and your jacket.
Your clothes give them
I like
to
that
me.
film. Next question from the audience. The German.
Right here.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Your logo implies memory, and you've talked about the brain. And I know that you have visions about that. So what parts of the brain aren't you doing well yet, and how will that evolve?
Yeah. So Evernote is making a transition from being just a memory to really being, our goal from the beginning, we always talked about being an external brain, cognitive prosthesis. And the first part of that we decided to tackle was memory. In fact, just capture and recall. And the next generations of our products are meant to move beyond just memory and to really helping you be smarter, helping you make better decisions. So it's associating things, it's presenting options, it's serendipitous discovery of information. A lot of that has started trickling into our newest releases. So if you look at some of the new stuff in the past couple of months, you're seeing hints of that. But we're going to go much more into actual intelligence. Like the goal of Evernote is to make you smarter. In the way that an airplane makes you run faster, Evernote will help you think better. I don't think we're doing any of that well now. I don't even think we're doing memory particularly well. We're just doing it a lot better than nothing.
I just had the greatest idea. You put the glasses on with Evernote, and you start saying something. You're like, it's like that saying, that Mark Twain said, and that it just starts telling you when you're stumbling for a word. It's like, what's that word? It's like, and the is a thesaurus.
That exactly.
We're all going to be using big words in the future.
Yeah,
it's going to be awesome.
It's
going to be extraordinary. Scrabble's going to be really interesting.
Well, the games obviously are going to change, completely.
Yeah. We're going to break into a lightsaber battle right now.
I'm super psyched for it. And again, it's not like the things that we're coming up with are almost certainly not going to be what's actually big. But something is going to be, and I really think it'll be life changing.
Oh, between questions, and good question by the way, both questions very good. The accelerator incubator. I know you hired Rafe Needleman to come work for you, the great journalist friend of mine and not really great cat by the way from CNET. He's running something called Trunk Labs or something.
Yeah.
What is that? Is it Y Combinator?
No. So we hired Rafe, which I was super happy about because I think Rafe was the first tech journalist that I talked to really in the early days, and he was going to write a review or something. And I remember I was scheduled to talk to him, and I was completely terrified because I had not this is Rafe Needleman. I'm talk to this guy. He's going to
Rafe's radar.
Yeah, and he wasn't for things he likes. He's fairly kind, but I've seen him rip things to shreds.
He can make or break a product. Yeah.
And so I was terrified, and and I talked to him, and I have no memory of it because I just blanked out afterwards. Yeah. And then about a year ago, when we were looking at what can we do for our developer community, we thought we have this great API, we have this great developer community, we have more than 20,000 third-party developers, and I think we're in a pretty lucky position because we have no conflict of interest with our developers, just because of the way our business model works. Right? This is kind of unique. A lot of other companies, great companies who have great API programs, but they have indirect business models, and so there's a fundamental conflict of interest between them and great third-party apps. Because if somebody writes a really good third-party Twitter app, Twitter doesn't necessarily want, and in some ways they do, in some ways they don't. Same thing for Facebook, right? Because you don't want anything that's going to distract eyeballs and decrease ad revenue and that kind of stuff. And for us, it's the opposite. Since we monetize only directly, when we looked at how much money we make per user, we actually saw that by far our most profitable users were the ones that were spending the most time in our third-party apps because it just correlated to engagement. So if somebody writes an Evernote integrated product that's so great that you spend all your time in it and you even decrease your usage of the Evernote clients, we'll actually make more money, chances are, from that user. And so we said, okay, we've got this. We're in this position where unlike some of these other companies, we don't have this fundamental conflict. So what else can we do? Not only don't we have a conflict with the developers, how else can we help them? What can we do to make their stuff great? Because we want them to build great experiences. And I thought, I remembered back to my first meeting with Rafe, and I thought, wouldn't it be awesome if we had someone that could actually explain to early developers and the stage of the product, look, here's how you talk to journalists, here's how you take your product from a kind of a good idea to really make it polished, here's the things to think about.
Coaching.
Coaching. And I thought I would have loved that. That would have been really useful. And we tried to think of who would do that, and I thought, how about
So
Rafe?
do you have companies in there now, or?
Well,
You're looking for companies?
We're looking for companies now. We're going to be announcing the structured programs for it over the next month or two.
Good. Oh, do it at launch.
Yeah.
Save it for March 4th.
Okay.
We got a big stage, 2,000 people. Next question. Okay.
Hi. So it's sort of related to the brain question. It sounds like we're trying to replace the things we do in the brain by things that make it easier for you, help you remember things. There's actually a study that came out recently that talked about when, for myself, I used to have a good memory, recall things, and as I get older, it's starting to get a little more difficult. So I go to Wiki or go to Google, and I find something really quickly when I can't remember it. So in that sense, it's helpful, but isn't there a danger that you're actually dumbing it down where we're losing the function that we used to have? And what's the risk of that?
Yeah, I mean, there was a study in the New York Times last week that said that fat people are healthier than skinny people. So, I was happy to hear that.
There wasn't. I mean, it's a joke.
No, I'm totally serious.
Oh no. Jesus.
It's about to.
That's all I need to hear, and I'm going to gain back.
It basically said that it said that overweight people had lower mortality rates than people whose BMI was in the normal range, and people that were in the slightly obese category had the same mortality rates as people who were in the. So your optimal thing was just overweight, but a little bit obese. I know, it's like awesome. It's the best.
Let's get pizza after this.
Yeah.
Next question.
But that's actually a really good question. So I think I call on that. I think technology makes you a better human. I think what distinguishes the human brain from other animals, I think, is the fact that the human brain physically alters in response to technology use, in response to tool use. And in fact, that's what tools are. I think, think of it this way, you don't remember this because, it probably happened when you were too young, but at some point in your life, you became aware of the existence of hammers, right? At some point, you didn't understand hammer, and then you were you grokked hammer.
Yeah.
And as soon as you grokked hammer, your brain rewired itself. And now when you look out in the world, you see it through the eyes knowing that a hammer exists. And the same thing happened with wheel. At some point, for hundreds of thousands of years, there was no concept of wheel. And then there was a concept of wheel. And our brains changed because now you look at the world, you're well, I can do these things that I couldn't do before. And it's hammers and it's wheels and it's levers and it's fire, right? At some point, first there was no fire and then there was fire. And it's written language. But it's not just those things, it's also Google and Wikipedia. And those you probably do remember. At some point in your life, there was no Wikipedia. And then at some point there was. And your brain is different because now you know that there's a thing called Wikipedia. And you know that anything that you ever want to look up, you can go and you can read about it and you can get an accurate definition, unless Stephen Colbert screwed with it recently. And your brain is different because of it. And you're a better person because of it. And you're smarter because of it. And the same thing happened to me with GPS. I'm not only bad with names and faces, I'm terrible at directions. I have no idea where I am at any time. And this was a major source of stress. And it went away completely about 10 years ago when GPS became ubiquitous. And so...
it's interesting. There's a whole generation of people who will never know the concept of being lost.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be a foreign concept, what, you didn't get to your destination?
Right.
You were late. Didn't you put it in Google and know exactly how many minutes with traffic it was going to take?
And it happens, right, and so I think that makes us smarter. Now, at every stages of these technological developments, somebody was publishing a study saying that it was bad for you. There were people sitting around, publishing...
Luddites.
Yeah. I'm sure there was somebody sitting in a cave 100,000 years ago saying, kids today, their brains are totally rotting because when we were growing up, we had to repeat verbally the oral history of our tribe.
Right.
And so we memorized things that went on for hours, and we had to, word
These
for word...
books are things up.
And now they're writing things down?
And they're reading them.
Yeah.
Wasting time
Their brains
reading
are
them.
rotting. This technology, this writing, it's totally going to be the end of civilization. Yeah. And in some sense, they were right. Right?
But the end of campfires. So.
But in a different and much more correct sense, they were totally wrong.
Exactly.
And I think it's the same thing with Evernote.
Yeah. And also, it can make you smarter, too, because I don't know about other people, but I keep my GPS on even if I know where I'm going, and I learn the name of streets, and I learn different routes.
Yeah.
I feel like people generally, there's all these great side effects that are unintended.
GPS has definitely improved my sense of direction without GPS because, and the way that it did it is I turned my GPS in my car from the way I'm going being up to north is up.
Right.
And now, wherever I go, I have this ambient, I see the map with north oriented correctly.
The wine's above us.
Yeah. And I just, I know
Los Angeles below us.
Right. I didn't know that before.
Yeah.
But now I do.
Next question.
Hey guys, Oliver Starr from Pearl Trees. You were talking earlier about the discoveries of what you've done wrong from users, and I really was hoping you could talk a little bit about Evernote's user testing.
Yeah, what's your process? Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing is I was a complete idiot about user testing for many years. In fact, I remember like the day that I figured this out, and like I went to my VP of engineering, and I'm like, hey, here's something I just realized. And I explained this thing that I'm about to explain. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, did you know this? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, why wasn't I informed? And when I realized is actually user testing and beta testing are two utterly different things. And I used to just always kind of think it's the same thing, and it's not. So beta testing, which we always did, is great, and beta testing is a way for your power users who are really involved in the product to tell you kind of what they want as power users, and in particular, if you do things that break power user wants, they tell you that. But what it's terrible at is actually doing anything that's not for power users. They'll never give you new user experience stuff. They'll never tell you how to make things easier. In fact, they kind of tell you the opposite. And so user testing is, you can't do user testing with your own users, because by definition, that's not going to give you the right information. So we wind up using usertesting.com, we wind up using a few other things, we recruit people, and we do both. So we have a very carefully run beta track, and the purpose of that is to get feedback about what we broke for power users. And then we have user testing, which is through usertesting.com and a few other tools. That's the goal there is to say, what are we doing wrong for new people? And neither of them is good at telling you what you should build, but both of them are very good at telling you what you shouldn't build. So we show different variations to people, and we see what people hate the most, and we interpret that the right way. And up until about 2 years ago, I was kind of conflating those two things, and I remember one day I'm like, I was kind of stupid. Those are two totally different things. So I don't know if anyone else here was conflating those two things before, but you shouldn't be. Then if you separate them, then you're actually getting rid of the noise from both, and the signals from both come in very clearly.
Solid answer. Let's get another question from the audience.
Hey, Phil. Alex Marino from Tennis Round. I read somewhere that in the early days of Evernote, at one point you were about to almost close the company, and you sent one email to all of your users, and this is how you found your first investor. So it just made me wonder, were you just against looking for funding? Were you too busy, didn't care about it, or was that on purpose?
No, and I think I told the story the last time I was on.
Yeah.
I was on the show. I think.
Tell it again.
We were saved by. We had the world's worst VC pitch. In 2008, when everything was going wrong.
Financial crisis.
Yeah, financial crisis.
End of the world.
And my VC pitch was, hi, I'm Phil Libin, you've never heard of me. We're going to make this thing called Evernote, and it's going to be software, that lets you write stuff down, remember things. And we're going to give it away for free. Please give me $10 million.
Great.
And it wasn't a good pitch. Usually I got thrown out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I didn't get thrown out immediately, but just out of politeness, they would ask me more questions. And so sometimes they would say, like, so who's your competition? And I had the world's worst answer for that. I would say, well, every PC or computer or calculator or device that's ever been released in the past 50 years already has a free note-taking app on it.
So that's our competition?
Yeah, so that's our competition.
Oxygen.
Yeah. And they would throw me out. And so we couldn't raise money because I sucked at raising money. So all of our early money came from us. We put in a lot of money ourselves. Why do you think you sucked at
raising money? When you're looking back on it now, was it you? Was it the pitch? Was it the performance?
Well, it was it was a little of everything. But I was talking to VCs before I had any traction, and so I just wasn't. I think you have basically two types of pitches. Like you're either a superstar team with an amazingly original idea. Well, either you have an amazingly original idea, in which case you can raise money just on that, which is extremely rare, extremely rare, or rare, like maybe it's never happened.
It happens. It's 2%.
Yeah. Well, or you have a superstar team. You're like, hey, I was a co-founder of this and that, and then you can raise money on that.
Sure.
It's a traction. Here I am showing you the traction. And we were none of those things, and so we had no business trying to raise money from VCs. So our initial money came from us and from angels and from family and from users. We had several of our early investments came from people who loved Evernote because we'd released a product already who happened to be investors. It wasn't until we had maybe about a year and a half of data. We could start showing the cohort models that we were able to get VC funding. And by then, everything was great. Like by then, things really picked up, and we had multiple term sheets. And I think we've raised over $250 million from VCs at this point. And
you've raised 250 now. Wow.
Yeah.
How do you like reconcile that from being on the brink of extinction that you were able to raise $250 million? Does that just make you feel like awesome?
Yeah, I mean it's better than
not being able to
than going out of business.
I mean, it's pretty amazing, though. I mean,
yeah, I mean, so in 2008, basically, we finally got this big deal. It was a European investor, and they were going to give us several $1 million, and we worked on the due diligence for a few months, and then on the day that it was supposed to close was the day Lehman Brothers collapsed.
Yeah, good times.
And the market tanked, 800%. And on the closing day, the investor said, "Hey, we were just wiped out. We just lost most of our value." And they backed out. And we had 3 weeks of cash left, and I was going to close the company down. And I felt like an adult for the first time. I was sitting there at 3 a.m. with only a couple of weeks left of cash, and I said, tomorrow morning, I am shutting down the company, because you have to. You can't run out of cash. You have to pay your last bills and stuff. And we already had 20 people at that point. So I said, I'm going in. I'm laying everyone off. And I felt like an adult. And I remember thinking so this is what it's like. It sucks.
Yeah.
I'm going to really try to minimize the amount of times that I'm an adult for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And then I got an email that night at 3 a.m. from a random guy from Sweden who offered to give us $500,000 because he loved Evernote, and that's what saved us. And so I think but no, that wasn't choice. That was just us being bad at fundraising.
Yeah. Next question. What time is it, Kieran? Perfect. 10 more minutes of questions, and we're done.
Evernote is currently a tool to help you remember things. Do you think there's a benefit in a tool to help you forget things?
Yeah. So one of my minor goals in life, I have several. One of my minor goals in life is ever since I saw Lost in Translation, the movie, I've wanted to do whiskey ads in Japan. And I'm totally serious about this. I think it's going to happen. I don't have any firm plans yet, but we are pretty big in Japan, and I'm learning a lot about whiskey.
I think you just said you're big in Japan. Go ahead. Well
done. And the slogan, I've already got the slogan. It's going to be me with a big billboard, and it'll say, "Evernote helps you remember. Suntory helps you forget."
Awesome. I thought to myself, that's
or Nika, or any of the distilleries, really. No.
I was almost going to say bad question, but quixotic question, and the answer made it turn out okay. Well done. We'll take a quixotic question every 5. Go ahead.
Evernote is valued at over $1 billion now. At what point did you realize that this wasn't a product for a niche following, a cool little handy tool, but actually something that could be a really monumental company?
Well, I knew that right away. It was really a question of when do investors realize that.
That's interesting. And what was the difference? What was the time difference and the number of user difference between? And who was the first one who realized it was $1 billion opportunity outside of yourself?
So right? Okay, so I think this is kind of important. When people talk about company valuations, the natural thing to do is to compare private company valuations with public company valuations, and those two things mean really different things. Mm-hmm. And so, I wrote a column about this. When we were valued at $1 billion, I looked at the New York Times, and the New York Times company was valued at $900 million. So we were worth more than the New York Times, and I thought that is profoundly wrong. It's weird. Are we worth more than the New York Times? And I couldn't get my head around saying, yes, we're worth more than the New York Times. But, really when I thought about it, the two things mean totally different things, because for many reasons, common versus preferred stock, preferences, all that stuff. Although at this point in our lives, we have very little of that. But really the difference is a well-traded public company is worth whatever it's worth, because it's a average price of a large number of buyers and a large number of sellers representing the current economic state of the business with expected levels of growth. In a private company, there's not a large number of buyers and sellers. In a private round, there's usually only one lead buyer. And so the price isn't an average. The price is what's the highest that you can get somebody to pay. And so if you want to increase your valuation, we could have had valuations far more than $1 billion. If we wanted to get the highest valuation we could, we just had to find the craziest person who would give us the highest valuation.
Most optimistic.
Sure.
And crazy helps a little.
And the problem with that strategy is, you wind up taking money from a crazy person, you wind up with a crazy person as your boss. And then an angry crazy person at some point.
Right.
And so we tried to have a valuation that was reasonable. And so I think we could have been a $1 billion company significantly sooner, not with the investors that we wanted. We wanted the best possible long-term investors. But the other difference in valuation is Evernote is not worth $1 billion today because if you look at our current finances, you're like, yeah, this business is worth $1 billion. It's worth $1 billion today because there is a non-trivial chance that it'll be worth 10 billion or 50 billion or 100 billion in a few years. And how big a chance? Well, if there's even a 1% chance it'll be worth $100 billion, then you can see it being worth $1 billion now. A public company like the New York Times, if it starts doing really well, you're going to have plenty of time to buy and sell that stock on the way up or on the way down. With a private company, you're not going to be able to. So I think that the comparisons are flawed, and I think people do get carried away with what it means to be to have a multi-billion-dollar private valuation. I don't think it means that we've built something that is equal to some of these big companies. I think what it means is we've built something that very smart investors think has a non-trivial chance of being worth a lot more than these companies in a few years.
And it's just like when you're gambling. I mean, if you're calling a bet, if there's a lot of money in the pot and it's a small bet, it's worth it.
Right, exactly.
And you have to remember those people are also making 25 bets.
Exactly.
They only need one of the 25 bets to go 100x to make it very much worth it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and the things that made Evernote be able to raise money at good valuations is our cohort analysis. It's basically showing that it was very long-term users, that people kept coming back, and that the longer they used Evernote, the more likely they were to pay.
I'm sure the margins are tremendous as well.
Well, depending on how you count it, right? If you count all of the, because the development expenses are really high. So if you're just counting like server infrastructure, stuff like that, yeah, the margins are huge.
Absurd.
Yeah, well,
but if you put in a modest amount of maintenance and improvement on the software, it does look impressive, right?
Margins are good, growth is good, and it's a positive feedback cycle where the longer you use it, the more valuable you get, which isn't true of most businesses. And that together makes it a bet worth taking. So the bet is it going to be worth $10 billion? How likely do you think it is? Do you think it's 10% likely to be worth $10 billion? I do. Then it's worth $1 billion now.
Right. And then there's all those other possibilities in between and above.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then what's the downside? And again, especially now, we just did a round that had a component of primary and secondary, and so the secondary was common stock and preferred stock, and so a lot of this is less true at our stage. But earlier on, when you're talking about early valuations, it's almost all preferred stock, and there's very little downside to preferred stock to investors because
they get their money out first.
They get their money out first, and so it's a bet that's not nearly as crazy as it seems.
Let's take another 2 questions. And we've got about 18 questions to go, so sorry about that. Go ahead.
To dovetail off your caveman storytelling, I'm just curious how much audio and voice plays into Evernote today?
Not very much today, although we are doing more with audio notes and with transcription of audio notes and searching through audio notes. So I do think that's a big possibility, and I don't know how the world's going to go on that, because personally, I don't like to talk to my phone, to my computer. I don't find that a natural thing. I don't use Siri very much. I don't like talking. I just don't like talking to a machine. I find something about that kind of weird, and I'm not sure. And the reason I find that weird isn't because I don't think it's for personal or emotional reasons. I just find it inefficient. I find that it's easier for me to input more information by touching, by swiping, by thinking. So I don't know personally how whether talking to a computer is actually going to be a primary use case, but we are hedging our bets, so we are working on it, and there's definitely a percentage of people that would prefer to talk, just like there's a percentage of people that likes to write, that likes to do handwriting. Whereas I never think that's going to be a majority use case again. I don't think that the majority of people will ever again be taking notes by writing, but some percentage of users will, and they'll think it's a beautiful experience, and we should give them a beautiful experience for that.
And I have used the audio. You can embed an audio clip and photos. Yeah. And I was live blogging a YouTube event by doing that and taking little sound bits until the PR person said, "What are you doing? You have 150,000 followers on Twitter, and this is a confidential event."
One of our first users had a great use case. He he was using Evernote early on, and when his daughter was born, he recorded the sound of her first crying in Evernote. Now he's got this audio note. That's the first noise his daughter ever made. That's what's that worth? A lot. Priceless. That's worth a lot. Priceless isn't good enough. We need to put a dollar value on it. But it's worth something.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting. What would you pay to have audio of your first complete sentence?
Oh man, what would I pay to have Evernote notes?
Well, when you were
school?
not totally completely wealthy, but when you were just a
what would I pay to have Evernote from high school? If I could have had Evernote in high school,
and you could have all your notes and drawings,
and whatever the hell I was into in high school, if I could have that
drawing
now,
Dungeons and Dragons on your notebook,
a lot of Dungeons and Dragons.
That's
a lot.
That's probably worth $1,000.
I would pay a lot for it.
$10,000 probably.
Me personally,
$5,000.
No, but I would easily pay $1,000.
$1,000's no brainer. To have all your notebooks from high school to look at.
Yeah, I would pay a lot more. I just don't want to admit it.
Right. Final question from my highly intelligent audience. These were great questions. Thank you.
My name is Jerome. How much of the 250 million did you use, and can you comment on capital efficiency? And did you really need that amount of money, or was it just because it was there?
Yeah, was it just gratuitous?
Gratuitous.
No, there was some that was secondary, so long-term employees or other people could sell some shares.
Yeah. Plus, I had to buy the barometric oxygen tent for my bedroom and some of those expenses.
Now you're getting crazy. You're turning into Gilbert Arenas from the Wizards. He made his whole house the elevation of Salt Lake City or something.
Wow.
His entire house. He spent $1 million making his house at that elevation, so he could just walk around his house at whatever 20,000 feet.
Huh.
Yeah.
That sounds plausible.
Yeah.
I might need to raise more money.
Yeah, exactly. Tomorrow on Tech Rich.
Yeah.
Evernote raises $100 million. Entire office sealed in barometric chamber.
So actually, we've spent very little of that. A lot of it we just still have sitting in the bank. And most of the rest of it was for secondary, so we never got it. It went to investors and employees and kind of earlier shareholders. So no, we don't need anything like that amount of money. But it's nice to have it because it's really part of it's part of the 100-year company. The idea is we want to build financial infrastructure in the same way that we build data center infrastructure, in the same way that we think about protecting your data. And it's actually kind of part of that. We want to have the buffer to know that we can focus heads down on building a great product forever without worrying about external market conditions. And that security is worth it. It's worth a little bit of dilution to have that security. But no, absolutely, we could spend much less of it, and most of what we raised in primary, we haven't spent.
All right, you have agreed to have lunch. Was it an hour-long lunch?
Sure.
Hour-long sushi lunch with Phil at the office, shooting the shit. That's just incredibly baller. And I think it's becoming a tradition now, so that means next month. You got to make sure Dave McClure is willing to do that. And which ticket did you mark? You said the one that has the earmark on it? This one right here with the earmark on it? I just put that earmark on it. I'm not going to pick that one anyway. Here, you pick the ticket. This is the person you're going to have lunch with.
All
no,
right.
No, the other one. No, that one. No. Yeah, that's one.
Right here.
Okay,
I'm going with this one.
Okay, good call.
Right. So I do have a tip actually for people. So this one, should I read the number?
You would read it slow, draw it out, and then anybody who's that number will. Well, actually, how many numbers are on there? Let's see.
There's a lot of numbers, man.
All right, when you get to the last three, then do the first three real quick.
085.
Okay, raise your hand if you have 085. Yeah. All right, give me the next one.
6.
Raise your hand if you have 6. Good. This is exciting. This is good. You got to peel it slowly. Just peel it slowly. Okay, go ahead.
1.
Raise your hand if you're still in it. Okay, it's between you guys. And
8 is great.
Yeah, booyah kasha. Very good. You pre-screen this guy, right? He's not a crazy stalker maniac, right? What's his name? Give me the card. Oh, give him a microphone. Let me interview this guy for a second.
I do have
Who are you? Introduce yourself.
My name is Reg Strami. I've got a company called Edistore, and we do online collaboration using sticky notes.
Wow. Oh,
awesome.
Very nice. And you were hoping to win this, weren't you?
Yeah, I've actually got my live scribe pen, and we actually integrate through Evernote, so it's kind of cool.
Good. And you gave Kieran $500, right? No. Good job. Good job, Kieran. Enterprising, entrepreneuring. Your suggestion is? I hope that you made $500 off for that. Good.
Well, so anyway, very much looking forward to sushi lunch. It's really good.
Yeah. Fantastic. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
and
you.
you're not like crazy or anything like that, right?
No, I'm from Canada. I'm good.
Okay, good. Canadian's good. That's good.
It's funny because it's true.
Exactly.
Next, I have a tip. So I spent a lot of time in my youth studying magic. And next time you're in a situation where you got to drop your business card in a thing to win something, there's a thing you can do to increase your chances by roughly 100x.
What is that?
Yeah. So it's cheating.
Well, whatever. It's a lot of things.
What you do is you take your business card, you just bend it in half, all the way in half, just make a nice crease, and then bend it back. And then when you throw it into the pile, like it will bow a little bit, and it will be like its surface area for somebody reaching in and grabbing will be many, 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 many hundreds of times more than one that's laying flat.
You can edit that out of the tape that we publicly published, so only 150 people have that tip. Thank you.
Yeah. So.
All right, listen. This is incredible. We went an hour and a half. When you have a great guest, the show is great. Let me hear it really loud for Phil Libin for being so honest and giving such great advice.
Thank you.
All right, very nice. All right, and I'm going to thank all three of our sponsors, and then you can clap one time for them. Thank you, of course, to RocketSpace for providing the space. Thank you to NewRelic for providing great analytics, code-level app performance, server resources, all that kind of great stuff. Go to newrelic.com/thisweekin to get a free This Week in Startups T-shirt, no credit required for the trial. And thank you, of course, to our friends at SnapTerms. Do not spend $150,000 on your website terms of service like Phil. Get it for $149 for your startup. Thank you so much to at SnapTerms. Let me hear it for our three sponsors. Great. And next month is Dave McClure on February 8th. Is that right? February 8th to 18 or 8? 8. Just to be clear, 8.
February 8th.
February 8th is Dave McClure of 500 Startups, and March 4th, 5th, and 6th is the launch festival, 3 days, 50 companies launching, and then on March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th is the hackathon for the first time, 48-hour hackathon. There's 2 prizes already. There may be more. 2 $25,000 investments, one from me, one from Dharmesh, who's a great angel investor, founder of HubSpot. So there's a $50,000 prize pool. You can take it as cash for $10,000, or you can take it as an investment. Take the investment, you don't have to pay tax. And there are going to be about 50 teams competing, or maybe 100 teams of 4, I think is what it's going to be now, because so many people have applied. That's going to be really amazing and unique. So if you know a team of hackers, you get 3 or 4 people, even if you have a company, it might be worth going. The 5 best projects out of the 75 to 100 that we have will get on the main stage, and they'll also get a guaranteed spot in the Launch Festival's competition in 2014 for that project or any other project. So the team will make their way automatically into the next year's event, which is kind of cool. And you're going to judge the conference, yeah? You'll come judge?
I would love to. I'd love to get in on some of that investment action, too.
Ooh, yum, yum. Okay. You want to match mine?
We'll see. Let's talk
about it. All right,
we'll
talk about it offline. All right, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time on This Week in Startups.